handing out some midterm grades during the bye. That and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this episode of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listener review every day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And, of course, you can follow along on Twitter. I am James Yarcho at JYarcho_Bucs, credentialed member of the media covering your Tampa Bay Buccaneers, here with you every Monday through Friday along with the everydayers. And for that, I want to share my appreciation for your continued support of the show. One of the ways you can support the show is become a Locked On Bucs insider. You're going to get news, rumors, updates, general thoughts, one-on-one conversations with me via text message. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes to become an insider today. Crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. But there is no crossover today because the Bucs are on a bye. So I am taking a look back at the first half of the season and handing out some midterm grades to some of the big names on the team. We'll get to defense and special teams a little bit later, but here's how this is going to go. I am not giving out grades to every player on the team. That would take me all 5 episodes for a week. So I'm just going to focus on some of the key players on, both sides of the football, plus a couple of special teamers. I'm going to give my grade, talk about where they are right now at this point in the season, where I think they could go. But we are going to start this one off with the offense, and starting at the top with Baker Mayfield. I am giving Baker a B+. The way he started the season was solid, but not perfect. But then he caught absolute fire to the point that he was among the top MVP candidates in the league. I still think he can get back to that, but he was doing that without a lot of his key players. Tristan Wirfs to start the season and their reshuffled offensive line, plus the absence of Chris Godwin. Then he loses Luke Gedeke. Then he gets Tristan back. He gets Chris back just to turn around and lose Bucky Irving and Mike Evans, and then lose Godwin again. Then you get Mike Evans back for basically a half of a game, loses him again. He has done a lot with a little, but these last 2 weeks have been really, really rough, and that is what hurts his grade. Overall, he's on pace for just under 4,000 yards and around 27 to 28 touchdowns, but also on pace for just 4 interceptions. That has been what has been so huge for this Buccaneers team. He is protecting the ball a lot better than he did last season, and that has been a major part, a major key in the Buccaneers' offensive success. And as for as poorly as the offensive line has played at times, he is on pace for the fewest sacks taken since joining the Buccaneers. So that is another positive. I expect him to be able to get that grade back up to the A range and re-enter the MVP conversation by the end of the season. We're going to learn a lot over the course of the next 3 games, but the Bucs come out of that at 2-1, and Baker starts to look like the Baker that we had for, a solid stretch right before these last 2 games. I think he is right back at the top. Emeka Egbuka, he gets an A. He's had a rough last few weeks, but that really isn't on him. A lot of that has been on the play of Baker Mayfield. But Egbuka has taken the league by storm and is now being thrust into a position where he is the wide receiver 1 for the Buccaneers. He's done a lot more than I think a lot of people were expecting him to at this point in his rookie season, but he's 7th in the NFL in receiving yards, 7th in average yards per reception. He's tied for 3rd in touchdowns, 7th in yards per game, tied for 12th in first downs, yet he's 31st in receptions. So he is up in the top 10 in most of these categories, top 15 in these categories, but yet he's all the way down below the top 30 in actual total receptions. I think this guy is still the front runner for Offensive Rookie of the Year. And if he has a second half of the season equal to or better than his first half, I think he is the runaway Offensive Rookie of the Year, he's going to have the opportunity to do exactly that. Another rookie, Tez Johnson, he gets a B. He's a late bloomer, but after becoming a bigger part of the offense over the last 3 weeks, he is starting to blossom and has really improved his grade. 14 receptions on 22 targets for 205 yards and 2 touchdowns over the last 4 games. That has been huge. Again, I don't think there were lofty expectations for Tez coming into the season. I think a lot of people, myself included in that, saw him as more of a contributor in certain packages and situations. But then all of these injuries to the wide receiver room have forced the Bucs to get him out on the field a lot more than they had probably originally planned to. His first 4 games, his offensive snap count percentages were 13.8, 29.2, 31.9, and 36.1. The last 3 games, 71.7, 68.1, and 70.7. And look, injuries, of course, played a part in all of this, but as a 7th round rookie, they're giving those kinds of snaps to him instead of guys like Cam Johnson or Ryan Miller. In fact, Tez has outsnapped Sterling Shepard every game over the last 3 weeks. That is a lot of trust in what he's able to bring to the offense. So he's another guy that I think has the arrow pointing up coming out of the bye week. Tristan Wirfs, some of you are not going to like this. I'm giving him a C+. The last 2 games have not been good, and I know he's not 100%, but he still needs to be better than what we have seen so far. He is supposed to be the anchor, the unquestioned constant on this offensive line, and we just have not seen that so far, at least not over the course of the last 2 to 3 games. I think the bye week is going to do him some good, get a little extra rest, heal up a little bit, but the Bucs are not going to get very far if he isn't playing close to the level that we have come to expect from him. Another offensive lineman, we're going to look at Graham Barton. I'm giving him a C-, and it is dangerously close to a grade of D. You guys know that I was a huge proponent for Barton when he was drafted, and I believed that he had the size, the strength, the skill, the athleticism to be a potential Pro Bowl center for the next decade or so. Instead, he looks outmatched in the middle of the line. He's getting bowled over, and that is not what you want out of your center. Now, you could say that some of it has to do with the fact that Cody Mauch isn't out there, but that only plays into it so much. He needs to be the guy that Michael Jordan can lean on and rely on, not the other way around. Now, I'm not calling Barton a bust by any means. I think we've seen enough of the positive from him to see that he has a lot of potential in this league, but I don't know if he needs a position change or just a mental reset during this bye before he can get things back on track. I'm going to rapid fire a couple of other offensive players that I felt were worth mentioning. Bucky Irving, I gave him an incomplete for obvious reasons. He was doing relatively well when he was out there. We have not seen him since he got injured in that Week 4 game against the Philadelphia Eagles. The Bucs need him, and they need him back in a big, big way. But Rachaad White, I'm going to give him a B-. He hasn't really run the ball well the last couple of weeks, but I think what he has done for this offense overall since Bucky went down is extremely valuable and should be appreciated. And again, not getting the ball a lot, not running very effectively the last couple of weeks has just as much to do with the offensive line, if not more, than what we put at the feet of Rachaad White. Sterling Shepard, he gets a B-. He's been pretty consistent and solid for Baker with all of the receivers out. And then Cade Otton, I'm going to give him an A-. I think that while his stat sheet isn't really anything to write home about early on in the season, the value that he brought to the pass blocking to help the Bucs navigate some rough waters with that offensive line shuffle early in the season went largely unappreciated. And then lately we've started to see him become a much larger part of the passing game. That, of course, is going to continue to open up as the Bucs get more and more of these weapons back. You're going to see defenses utilize a lot of resources to stop Ibuka and Chris Godwin and Jalen McMillan and Bucky Irving and those guys. That's going to create some mismatches and some serious opportunity for Cade Otton to be that security blanket for Baker Mayfield, that guy that's going to move the sticks on third down. Defensive players are up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every single day, but on Prize Picks, being right means cashing in. With football back, Prize Picks is the simplest and the fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes, all in less than 60 seconds. It's quick, easy, and honestly, the best way to follow along with football. It really is a fun way to stay locked in, even if your team isn't playing, just like the Bucs this week on their bye. You can make every game mean something and be even more excited to take in the action. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Let's be honest. Most of us can't even name all our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth. Between 401ks, savings, and investments, it's easy to lose track, and that can mean leaving money on the table. That's why I started using Monarch, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch's visual dashboards and smart tools make it so much easier to understand where my money's going and how to make it work harder for me. I love that I can review everything with my wife. We can sit down, see our shared goals, make better financial decisions together with everything laid out right in front of us. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarch.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every single day. Time to talk some defense. We're going to go from the front to the back in this one, starting with Vita Vea, who gets an A. What Vea is able to do to open things up for the other defensive players and pass rushers is huge in Todd Bowles' defense. He disrupts running lanes. He allows everyone around him to get either one-on-one opportunities or unblocked lanes to the quarterback. Vea's impact, and David Harrison and I talked about this for years, basically since Vita Vea's rookie year. His impact isn't always going to show up on a stat sheet, but when he's out there getting double and triple teamed and still winds up with 2.5 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, 6 quarterback hits, and a fumble recovery, plus you factor in all these other guys that are able to blitz and get to the quarterback because of the attention that Vea commands. Yeah, he is still the same old dominant Vita Vea out there every single down. Rookie Elijah Roberts, he's going to get a B from me, considering the way that he has stepped up in the absence of Kalijah Kancey and really overtaken Greg Gaines as that, primary replacement. Much like Tez Johnson, he's seen his opportunities and snap counts get a significant boost over the last 3 weeks. 50.7%, 67.6%, and 66.7% of defensive snap counts. And again, like Tez, this is a day 3 rookie that is being asked to do a lot more than any of us expected them to do this early on in their rookie season, and he's making the most of his opportunities. I think he continues to get better as the year progresses. He gets a few more reps under his belt. Talked about it earlier this week, starts to play more than have to think, and he's just out there reacting, not having to think about anything. He is going to be an absolute force moving forward. Hassan Reddick, I'm giving a B-. I would like to see more sacks out of him, but I think he's doing an awful lot in and for this defense. He's been great in the Bucs run defense. He's dropping back in coverage. He's winning a lot of his pass rush reps. He's doing what he's asked to do. And I think the attention that he's been garnering, combined with the attention that Vea is getting, that's what's opening things up for a lot of these blitzes that Bowles is running with guys like Jacob Parrish and Tyke Smith and Antoine and Boss. So fans are hard on Reddick because they wanted him to come in and get, 13, 15, 16 sacks. We all wanted that. but the way he's being utilized and the job that he's doing, I think is much better than he's actually getting credit for. Yaya Diaby, on the other side, he gets an A, no doubt. He has been on an absolute tear over the course of the last month. He's sitting with 4 sacks and 7 tackles for loss, plus a forced fumble on the season. He looks like the player that we expected him to be last season in the way that he was trending at the end of his rookie season. He is having a really, really solid year in run defense to the point that he's actually trending towards having his best season yet in his run defense, according to PFF. Now, he is entering a stretch where he's going to get to face some sitting ducks in the form of Kyler Murray, Tua Tagovailoa, Bryce Young, or Andy Dalton, depending on who's getting the start for the Panthers when they face off. He could easily end the season with double-digit sacks with the way that he has been playing the last month, as long as that trend continues in its upward trajectory. Lavonte David, this isn't going to go well. I'm giving him a B-. I was real close to giving him a C+. I'm going to give him a B-. That last game against the New Orleans Saints kind of bumped him up a little bit. He's not the same guy that he was. He's not the same guy that the Bucs have had over the last decade, and that's fine. I get it. Father Time is undefeated. But plays that he has made with ease in the past are the ones that he's missing now, and I think that's really, really difficult for us to see. And it's also really, really difficult based on what was expected of him in this defense and the role that he has. It is affecting other things around him. His coverage grade on PFF is the worst by a wide margin of his career, and that should not really come as a surprise to anybody. He has not looked good in coverage at all. He's been beaten by numerous tight ends that he really used to be able to shut down and absolutely dominate. So I hope things get better for Lavonte, but I think if we remove the rose-colored glasses of, oh, he's Lavonte David, he's a legend in Buccaneers history. He is what it means to be a Buccaneer man. He's the silhouette up on the wall and everything. And if we just look at him as a nameless linebacker, people would be a lot more willing to criticize what they've seen compared to what was expected. Speaking of what people have seen compared to what was expected, Servassier Dennis gets a C. Now, he is getting better. I will say that if I had done this show a month ago, he would probably be sitting at a D+, but he's still struggling for a handful of plays each game. And those struggles on those handful of plays have cost the Bucs some huge, huge momentum shifts. You can go back as recently as the Detroit game when he slipped and fell, and it allowed Gibbs to pick up nearly 50 yards on just a short catch out of the backfield. Those are the things that just cannot happen. But I think the fact that he is trending in the right direction overall, across the board, he is getting better each and every week. I think that's a positive sign for the rest of the season and his future with the team as a potential starting linebacker, if that's the route that they decide to go next season. But a huge second half of the year coming up for Servassier Dennis. Jacob Parrish gets an A. We knew as a rookie he was going to be starting at the nickel spot, but I think like the rest of the rookies, he has exceeded expectations early on in the year. 2 sacks, 3 passes defensed, 5 tackles for loss. That is really, really impressive for a rookie corner, because you guys know that I believe that outside of the quarterback position, corner is the hardest one to transition from college to the NFL. He is a budding star for this defense. Jamel Dean, A+. I have nothing negative to say about Jamel Dean. He is PFF's number 1 corner in the NFL right now. He already has a career high in interceptions for a season. He's absolutely crushing it across the board. And it's reached a point where Bucs fans that could not wait to get rid of him are now hoping that Jason Light can figure out a way to bring him back before he officially hits free agency and really help continue this secondary becoming one of the better units in the NFL. Excuse me. He also has a sack and 2 forced fumbles on the year, so it's been an all-around incredible season for Jamel Dean. Zion McCollum, I'm giving him a C+. I expected more. I think a lot of you expected more, especially after the season that he had last year. And then the big money contract extension he got right before this season started. He just has not seemed like a guy that is out there making any splash plays, doing anything that really makes a big impact or swings momentum in any way at all. I need to see more from Zion McCollum. I think the Bucs do too. I truly believe that if the current trend of McCollum's play continues, you're going to see Benjamin Morrison trading shifts with him instead of Jamel Dean, like we have seen throughout the first half of the season, unless that is more of a snap count kind of thing where they're trying to make sure that they keep Jamel Dean as healthy as possible for as long as possible. But if it's based on play, Benjamin Morrison should be swapping with McCollum, not Jamel Dean. All right, we are finishing up the defense and talking a little bit of special teams. That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Well, Mazda brings this same intention to how they craft every model. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. And with all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Wrapping things up here on a midterm edition of the Locked On Bucs podcast. A couple more names on the defensive side that I want to cover. And we're going to start with Antoine Winfield Jr., who gets a B+. Despite what officials said, Antoine should have 2 touchdowns on his stat line, but even without them, he has an interception, a forced fumble, a fumble recovery, 3 passes defensed, 3 tackles for loss, and a sack. Then his coverage grade is the 3rd best of his career so far. Then he also has his 3rd best pass rush grade of his career so far. Both of them trending up, could eclipse second. I don't know even though Antoine has played really well, I don't think the start that he had to the season is going to allow him to overtake that all-pro season that he had in 2023. But Antoine is always a threat to make a big play, and he's going to make more than a few before the end of the year. He's much like Levante has been for this team. He is the steady presence and the leader, only he's on the back end of the defense instead of the middle. He's not going to miss a lot of plays. I would just like, and honestly, I would just expect for him to make more splash plays over the course of the second half of the season. Tyke Smith, he gets an A. You got a position switch from his rookie year to this year. He was the nickel corner last year. Now he's back at safety, and he is absolutely crushing it. Going into last week, he was the only player in the NFL with 50 or more tackles, 2 or more sacks, and 5 or more passes defensed. He has been making tons of splash plays to go along with his improved coverage grade, and he's also shaved more than 5% off of his missed tackle percentage from his rookie year to bring it all the way down below 8%. That's the kind of reliability that you need at the safety position when he's part of the last line of defense. I absolutely love what we have seen out of Tyke Smith this season. Shifting over to special teams, Chase McLaughlin has moved his way. Illinois legend Chase McLaughlin has moved his way all the way up to a B+. He had a rough first couple of weeks. He had that, infamous blocked kick that got returned for a touchdown against the Jets, and Aaron Glenn is on the sideline dancing and doing all that stuff before the Jets ended up losing anyway. But Chase has pretty much gone back to being automatic. Most 50-plus yard field goals than any kicker in Buccaneers history. Now, his field goal percentage is only at 81% this year, but he's missed just 4 kicks. So that number is going to go up. So yeah, Chase McLaughlin, he is all the way back. You can count on him anytime that he's on the field. By the end of the season, this grade is going to be an A. Riley Dixon, I'm going to give a C+. Now, things have gotten better. They are trending in the right direction, but I need to keep seeing him get the ball off of his foot quickly and have solid punts before I trust that he's not going to have more of his kicks blocked or shank more kicks when he's under pressure. But seems like he's gotten that cleaned up a little bit. McLaughlin had the rough start. He's cleaned it up. Dixon had a rough couple of weeks. He's cleaned it up. Want to see that continue into the second half of the season. Overall, I give this team an A- at the bye week. Offense, I give them a B+. Defense overall, I give them a B+. And I know what you're saying because my son said the exact same thing. You're saying, James, how can the offense get a B+ and the defense get a B+, and that averages out to an A-? Well, it's because I have to grade the overall on a curve. I didn't factor in the injuries as heavily when I isolate the offense and I isolate the defense. But overall, facing what this team has faced, I believe that they are worthy of that A- overall grade. And a lot of that has to do with overcoming the injuries and the adversity, and they have reached 6-2, the best start in franchise history. This team has a ceiling that they haven't even begun to reach yet because of all the players that are missing. And I mentioned it on the Bucs Squad show. And if you haven't caught that, we had our debut episode. It was live on YouTube Tuesday night. Go and check out the Bucs Squad show. There's going to be 2 of those every single week. I'll be on all of the midweek ones, or some of the post-game ones, but I'll always be there for the midweek. And I mentioned it there, but you get Bucky, Chris, and Gedeke back, and the offense is going to level up. Those guys are going to get reincorporated. You're going to be able to get things worked out a little bit, and then you get to bring McMillan back into the fold. So now you've already reintegrated Bucky and Godwin. Now you get to reintegrate McMillan, and the offense is going to level up again. You get him more acclimated. You get him more involved. And then hopefully before the playoffs start, week 16, week 17, you get Mike back. And then you get to level up one more time. And Mike isn't going to need integrating. Mike is, you plug him in, he's good to go. This team, if they can keep everyone on the field, and I know that's a big if, guys. I know with as many major injuries as we have talked about, that is a massive if. But if they can keep everyone on the field, this offense could put up 30 points a game without blinking. And if that's the case, we are going to see the defense be able to tee off the way that they just did against the Saints. Should that happen, if that's what things come to with this Buccaneers team, I don't think that there's another team in this league that can hang with them. That's going to do it for this episode. Please check out everything on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at @JYarcho_Bucs, Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Bucs in both of those spots. Make sure that you are following on YouTube with those notifications turned on, as well as wherever you get your podcasts. Become a Locked On Bucs insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes. You want to support the show, but you don't want to be an insider? It's real simple. Like this episode on YouTube, leave a 5-star review wherever you get podcasts. Those things do help other Buccaneers fans find the show. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. I want to thank you so much for joining me right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.